Hey, what's up guys? Jake with Legacy 4x4 here again, and today we're working on another customer project. We're making two huge tables for this guy that builds acrylic aquarium. We got one huge work table that we're gonna make. This thing's gonna be 4 feet wide by 10 feet long. And then we've also got an 8-foot by 3-foot aquarium stand we're gonna make for this guy. Let's go in and get started on today's video. So let's go ahead, let's unload the trailer. We're gonna bring the saw outside actually. We're gonna cut all of our steel on the trailer down to the right size and then bring it into the shop from there. Not all of this steel that's on the trailer is gonna get used for this guy's project. Some of this steel is for me to continue on with the Willys build. We've made a lot of progress on this recently, and we're gonna keep on crushing both the Willys and these aquarium projects. All right, so moving right along outside here, you can see I've got the slugger set up on the trailer. Because I'm going to be cutting all these 20-foot sticks, it is just easier to do this out here. We're making pretty quick progress of it. I did just put a new blade finally on this saw right after doing Matt's roll cage and the back half of the Willys and the rock sliders for the Willys and everything else. I finally killed the last Diablo blade I had on my slugger saw. That's okay, I put on a new one, too easy, and now it's cutting like absolute butter all of these 2x2 by 1/8 inch square tubing pieces that we're using. This looks like it goes by pretty quickly, but truthfully this took me a little over 2 hours to do. But it's worth it to me to take my time and make sure everything is cut exactly right, and then make sure all of my dimensions and everything are fully ready so that I can go into the garage and just assemble everything a lot easier without having to come out here and recut anything. So we're doing all of the cuts for both the work table and the aquarium here. Again, it goes by quick enough with the slugger. It makes really fast work of all of these things. Finishing up the last couple cuts here, and then we've got to transition to cutting all of the mitered corners. So the top of the work table and the top and bottom of the aquarium stand are all going to be mitered corners to give a smoother round finish for the whole tables. You can see that's what I'm doing here. I've got the saw turned and I'm going through and just cutting a perfect 45 at the end of all of these. I know this is extra cutting. I could have done this when I cut them off in the first place, but I think this is easier and I never make mistakes when I do it like this. That was a ton of cutting, but we got it all done to even include all of our mitered ends. So now all we have to do is actually just put it together. So I've got it all sitting on the trailer still. So we're gonna start by building the work table first, and then we're gonna move on from that onto the actual aquarium stand. I'm gonna bring the pieces in here. I'm gonna do them like 2 sections at a time. So I'm gonna build these rectangular base first, and then I'll build the lower T section, and then I'll just put the uprights on it outside on the trailer. This is because I'm kind of limited on space because the Willys is behind me here, and then I'm not gonna be able to get it out the front of the garage if I build it back here in the back of it. So I'm thinking one piece at a time, and then do final assembly and welding and cleaning on the trailer. It's okay, the trailer's like a half a work surface anyways, so let's go in and get going on finishing this video. All right, moving back inside here, I'm gonna lay out everything on the floor because I don't have any room on any of my tables with the Willys in the way. So unfortunately that means I have to use the floor to lay everything out. I'm making sure as I go through here to double check square about 4 different times. And I'm even putting in these little support pieces in the middle here just to help keep things a little bit tighter as I go. Again, I'll check square throughout this a bunch of times. I'll check it before I weld anything, after I tack everything, and then I'll check it one more time before I final weld the entire assembly. It goes by quick enough though. I'm just tacking in these center support pieces here. These are what's gonna make the table top for the work table. It goes by quick enough though, once you get them all tacked in. Next, I'm gonna end up raising this up so I can get off of my knees and work more at about waist height. So I'm gonna just put this up on some sawhorses. I'm not worried about it deflecting or anything like that. These tacks are strong enough for what they are, and it doesn't need to be absolutely 100% perfect as it is just getting welded to an 1/8 inch tabletop. I'm just going around and doing all my final welding. I am using flux core wire for this because I had a spool of it already in the welder and I just didn't feel like swapping it out. For a project like this, it doesn't necessarily require the MIG due to the fact that I'm not too worried about its outward appearance when it's all finished. And the flux core is plenty strong enough if you do it right that it'll work on a project such as this. We're just gonna go through, weld up everything, and then let it come through afterwards and clean it up. That's the only downside of flux wire welding, is that you do have to clean it up afterwards, but a wire wheel on an angle grinder makes pretty short work of all of that. I was working kind of late into the night here. It just was the way it is. I got back from the steel yard later than I wanted to, and I was on somewhat of a deadline to get this project completed. So I'm going to work through the night a little bit and get as much of this done as I can. The lighting outside kind of sucks, so I apologize for bad video quality here, but you can see what I'm doing is just walking around, and I've got the actual support that we just made inside the garage is now outside and laying on top of the 1/8" steel sheet plate that we have. That plate was way too big and heavy for me to move into the garage by myself, so I left it on the trailer, understanding that I would just do all my final welding with it on the trailer. This worked well enough, and I'm satisfied with the end results that we have here on the table. Moving back inside, I'm beginning to work on the aquarium stand finally. So the aquarium stand is going to have 2 of these 8-foot by 3-foot rectangle portions of it, and then there's going to be just a couple of riser pieces in between the 2 of them. This is going to provide plenty of structure and stability for this stand, for this guy to put a 300-gallon aquarium on top of. The work table is for his business, but this aquarium stand is for his own personal use. But it goes by quick enough. Like I said, it's just a simple square rectangle, much like we did for the work table, a couple center supports, and then we're all done with that. Moving right along, you can see here that I am using the first one that I made to lay out the second one. What this does is ensure that I've got a perfect match between the upper and the bottom portion of this. It's very important that both of the pieces match perfectly so that when I do add in the vertical uprights, you won't be able to see any kind of distortion difference between the 2 main pieces of this aquarium stand. It goes by quick enough to go through and just final weld everything. It's a lot to work around, but easy enough. Here I'm just adding the vertical uprights. I'm tacking them into place before I lay the upper portion on top. And then once it's on top, I'll go through and do all the final welding after I've ensured that it's leveled and perfectly square with the base. Again, this goes by quick enough. These projects aren't terrible. It is a lot of welding, and it's kind of a lot to manage just due to how big they are. Moving right along, I'm now making the caster plates now that it's daylight the next day, and I'm making these caster plates for the bottom of the work table. So the work table will have removable casters in the event that one ever gets gunked up or breaks or something like that, the guy will be able to replace them himself. I also prefer this over just welding the casters on, as it's a more professional overall appearance. Just drilling the holes for the casters. Normally I would use the plasma table to do something like this, but as you've seen in a couple of my videos, the plasma table's torch is currently broken and I'm still awaiting the replacement torch to come in. So we got to do this the old way and just do it all by hand. It's okay. That doesn't take too long to make only 4 of these. If I had to make a bunch more of them, I would have not been having as much fun. Coming outside, just putting these caster plates on the bottom of the work table here, and they're just going to bolt in the casters pretty quick and easy. I'm using a cheap little jack just to lift the table up because it is fairly heavy. It's not outrageous, but it's definitely enough to feel it, so I'm using the jack to help support it while I put these casters in place just to make my life a little easier. You can see behind me the aquarium stand is actually standing up, waiting to be dropped onto the trailer once I'm finished up with putting these casters on. But this project's coming by pretty quickly and we're nearly finished. All right, I'm nice and dirty, my hair's all a mess, but this project is now completed. Let me go and give you guys a quick look of what these look like all finished up and loaded on the trailer ready for delivery, and then we'll talk about what this took overall to accomplish. All right, and here you can see both of the stand and the table are sitting on the trailer, fully loaded and fully finished, ready to be delivered to this guy's place. It was easy enough, fun project, and I'm really excited with the way the 2 of them turned out, and I hope the guy likes them just as much as I do. All right, so I have a total of about 9 hours into this project. I estimated it would take me 10, so I'm a little bit ahead of what I thought it was gonna take me to take, but that's okay. It all worked out just fine. So we got about 9 hours into it, and we used 160 feet of 2x2 by 1/8" square tubing, and we used 1 5-foot by 10-foot piece of 1/8" sheet. Like I mentioned earlier, he builds aquariums and he's using this work table to set up and build all those aquariums on top of. That's why the table is so low to the ground, because he wants to have the space to build his aquariums up off of the table like so. Either way, this was a really fun project. I'm really happy with how they both turned out, and it's always fun to get to work on some interesting things such as this. Grateful for the opportunity to get to hone my skills on some really unique and interesting projects. All right, I hope you guys like this content. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and stick around next week for a little bit more of this Willie's action.